Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill today, leading senators were pressing the administration to take a tougher economic action against Iran in the aftermath of this week's attack on the British embassy in Tehran. Meanwhile, Israel is engaged in a fierce internal political debate over whether to launch a preemptive military strike against Iran. Today, a new Saban Center poll asked Israelis about military action, and the country is split right down the middle. 43% support an attack on Iranian nuclear facilities, 41% do not. That poll being released in the next hour, but we have it exclusively here first. Former U.S. Ambassador Martin Indyk, Vice President and Director for Foreign Policy at Brookings Institution, and also is convening that Saban Forum, an annual gathering of U.S. and Israeli officials and officials from around the world here in Washington this week. Thanks so much for joining us. There was pressure in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee today for why the administration has not yet taken action against the central bank. Wendy Sherman was saying that they will take action when it is propitious. They're looking at energy markets. They're looking at a lot of other things, according to the testimony today. Do you think that they should be taking stronger action? We're slightly behind Great Britain and some of the other European powers in moving against Iran.
It's a rather stark irony that France, Britain should be taking the lead on these new sanctions, particularly on the Iranian central bank, and that we should be appearing to hesitate. I think the concern here is that with the global economy in such a delicate state, particularly because of the Eurozone crisis, that actions that might drive up the price of oil could be deleterious, and particularly deleterious to the American economy. So it's a reasonable concern. But I do think that the other very real concern is that Iran is continuing its path towards acquiring nuclear weapons, which would be a huge game changer for the Middle East region and cause a much greater instability, especially if it were to provoke an Israeli military attack. So I think the administration needs to get behind these new sanctions.
Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu has basically told his cabinet officials not to talk publicly about the Iran situation. They are involved in a very tough internal debate, which is, being Israel, a very public debate. It's all over the media. What about the divide that your own polling shows in Israeli public opinion about taking military action against Iran?
Well, I think that the Israelis, and not just the Israelis, the United States as well, faces this really tough dilemma as Iran draws closer and closer to the nuclear threshold. The dilemma is to bomb Iran or to live with an Iranian bomb. And neither course of action is a good one. And I think the Israeli public reflects that kind of concern. If the Israelis were to take military action, there are 40,000 Hezbollah rockets just north of Israel that will likely start to rain down on Israeli citizens. And I think they understand that very well, that there are all sorts of consequences, unintended consequences, as Secretary Panetta warned Defense Minister Barak last week, that the Israelis are very, I think, conscious of, and so they're split. And it is a very tough dilemma. That's why I think that toughening the sanctions, trying to get the attention of the Iranian regime to not to cross the red line, so that we don't have to make that choice between two bad choices, and the Israelis as well don't have to make that choice, is the most important way of proceeding now.
Martin Indyk, Ambassador, thank you very much for being with us.